A few minutes after hanging up with my boss, the couple returned. They looked a bit upset, and the man asked me if I had seen their daughter. I was taken aback by the question and replied that I hadn't seen her since they left for dinner. They exchanged worried glances and went back upstairs quickly. I felt uneasy about the whole situation and decided to call the room to check if everything was all right. The man answered, sounding a bit agitated, and told me that their daughter was missing. They had searched the entire room and couldn't find her. I immediately notified hotel security and we began searching the premises. We checked the security cameras, but there was no sign of the girl leaving the room or the hotel. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The parents were distraught and I felt helpless. We searched until dawn, but there was no trace of her. The police were called and an investigation was launched. The incident left a profound mark on me, and I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. To this day, I wonder what happened to that little girl and how she could have disappeared so mysteriously. By that time, I had already forgotten about the girl in room 124, but around 11 at night, I remembered her. The couple still hadn't returned, which made my doubts resurface. After a while, and having called my mother to tell her I wouldn't be coming home to sleep, strange things began to happen. While I was talking to my mother, I clearly heard someone in high heels coming down the stairs. I ended the call to attend to the people coming down, but after a few minutes no one appeared. I pretended to ignore it for a moment, and a few minutes later, the sound of heels echoed again. At that moment, I remembered that no woman had gone upstairs wearing heels during my shift. Or at least that's what I recalled. As I was trying to remember the guests who had passed during my shift, I heard a child crying. I didn't know what to do since I couldn't enter the room. I could only wait for the parents to return. 4 hours passed and the guests from room 124 still hadn't come back. The girl cried and whimpered intermittently. Fortunately, there weren't many clients that night, but the few who were there came down to complain about the crying girl who wouldn't let them sleep. Around 3:30 in the morning, something happened that sent chills down my spine. The 4 doors on the lower floor opened simultaneously, and the televisions in those rooms turned on to channel 93. I was terrified and the crying resumed. I couldn't leave the TVs on, so I had to enter each room to turn them off and close the doors. In the last room, as I turned off the TV, I saw in its reflection a girl standing at the entrance of the room. I felt my breath become heavy, and my hands trembled as I turned around. When I finally did, the girl was no longer there. I tried to run to see her, but before I reached the door, it slammed shut in my face. I tried to open it, but it was stuck. When I finally got out, everything seemed normal, and at least for that night there were no more strange occurrences. In the morning, I met with the person taking over the shift. I told them what had happened, and we decided to open room 124 since the couple never returned for the supposed girl. Deep down, I knew we wouldn't find anything. When we opened the door, there was no one inside. At that moment, I felt a chill run down my spine again. My colleague just asked me, was it a girl in a yellow dress? I replied yes and asked how they knew that. Knowing this, I didn't want to continue working there, but my mother refused to let me quit the job. A week after the first incident, they switched me to the night shift, and I can say it was the worst week of my life. I couldn't sleep well and was frightened on several occasions, but the most intense experiences occurred 2 days later. The evening receptionist was very Catholic, to the extent of leaving an open Bible on the counter, intending to ward off evil, as he said. Around 1 in the morning, I was about to sleep. I turned off the TV and noticed the Bible on the counter started to tremble. I could only think, oh no, it's starting again. When I reached for the Bible, it slammed shut loudly and then fell to the floor. As I picked it up, I heard the sound of high heels descending the stairs again. I gathered my courage and approached to see who was coming down. I waited for about 10 minutes by the door, but no one appeared. I was exhausted, so I decided to lie down for a while. It was then, as I turned my back to the staircase, that I heard a man scream from the second floor. I ran up to see what was happening. The screams were coming from room 127. Outside the room was a very frightened man who told me, "Young man, you won't believe it, but I saw a girl sitting on my bed." The noise of heels woke me, and when I opened my eyes, there she was. I told him to calm down, that maybe it was a bad dream, but he insisted it wasn't a dream and that the girl was indeed there. After about 20 minutes, he took his things and decided to leave the hotel. I don't know what really happened, but the man was very scared when he left. I also don't know what the girl might have said or done to him. The rest of the night passed normally after that incident, but the last straw was what happened the following night. Everything was normal until midnight. I had brought some holy water and a rosary with me. I said a few prayers and prepared to sleep. I was dozing off when I heard a noise at the reception. I want to clarify that the place where I slept was not at the reception, but rather in a small storage room behind it. After this clarification and returning to the story, I heard a noise that seemed strange to me, and my first thought was that perhaps a guest was awake and needed something. I got up, very tired, and went to the reception. To my surprise, there was nothing there, except that I noticed a heavy metal stool had moved a few inches. I almost fell back asleep when I clearly heard the stool being dragged. I quickly got up, only to find the stool on the floor. I decided to ignore it and loudly said, "Don't start bothering me, I'm very sleepy." Honestly, I was getting fed up with it. I decided to lie down again and was about to fall asleep when I suddenly felt the bed move. I got up and cursed again. But then I thought to myself, what if it's not ghosts and it's actually an earthquake? A few seconds passed and it stopped. I didn't decide to go out since no one else had gotten up, no guest peeked out, so I just lay back down. A few minutes later, it shook again and I thought it might be an aftershock. I got up and lay back down, almost asleep, when I felt the bed move more forcefully. This time I didn't want to get up due to exhaustion, but when I opened my eyes, I saw a tall shadow in front of me, extending its hands toward me. I couldn't move. I felt my heart could stop at any moment, and it was then that I heard a voice behind me. After that, I managed to get up, ran out to the street and lit a cigarette, then another, and so on until I finished the pack. I really didn't want to be there anymore. A bit calmer, when I went back into the hotel, I saw a shadow on the stairs. I couldn't see its face, but I knew it was watching me. That night, I couldn't sleep, and the next morning before leaving for school, I told my mother that there was no way I was going back to that hotel. I spoke to my boss just to thank him and resign. Even today, whenever I recount this story, I feel a chill run through my body. It's an experience I'll never forget.